stream. I'm going to bring Kate Talk in here in just a second. And then and let me just make sure a couple of settings here. Sorry, we will get this going now. And it doesn't look like I'm broadcasting at K-Talk either. I don't see any indication that I'm broadcasting at K-Talk. You know, the thing is, what I have to do is I have to pick one or the other. That's about it. I think I have to pick one or the other. But I was broadcasting at K-Talk at one time. And let's see what I can do about rebooting this, because it's really important. Today's program was really important. So I am going to disconnect here and then try to reconnect. Yeah, I know. Don't know why. Let's try reconnecting. I did that wrong. All right, let's try this and see if it's, nope. And I am hooked up. All right, those of you on the stream, just hold on a second here. I gotta let, yeah, Paul? Yeah, I can see here on the recording it's dead air. And you want to call me? All right. All right, we're making the adjustments here. Boy, lots of stuff to talk about. A lot. You know, there are a couple of, or there is at least one hero left who came in with the new administration, and Bobby Kennedy Jr. And boy, is he fighting a good fight. I've got a couple of things I want to talk about him today that continues to propel him into my category of heroes. And I mean, he is fighting the fight. Others have compromised to some degree, but he's still there doing the job. And let's see if this will make a difference. No, I don't see. Well, I know I'm Paul. I'm contacting here, but all of a sudden, I wonder if somebody left the mute button on. That's very possible. Somebody may have muted the program. That won't be the first time. So let me just tell Paul. Ah, I can't stand this. This is absolutely ridiculous. On air. And they don't want, they obviously don't want, they don't want, they don't want, oh, it doesn't matter. I am, just trying a last minute thing here. We may just be limited to the stream. No, the phone shows that I'm connected to the radio station. Nothing is coming through on the recording, so it must have been muted. My program was muted last night. So that's all I can say. There won't be a live program at K-Talk. Ah, brother. You just gotta love it. Just such incompetence. Well, I'm sorry, but for you streamers, let's do it. I'm not, there's no sense worrying about K-Talk. Which is another reason that I just kind of want to propel myself straight stream. I made the announcement yesterday that as far as my appearance at K-Talk is going to be, I'm only going to do 1 hour program on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, I hope to leave a 2-hour program, except when they mute the mic. And my mic is on. I'm connected here to the radio station as far as the phone is considered. And I'm sorry. So I try now. 712. I'm still connected. According to the telephone at the radio station, I am connected. But nothing is coming through. Nothing's coming through for recording. So the mic was muted. Yeah, I see that. I see. Paul has to have been muted again. Such incompetence. See, and that's why, they asked me to stay at K-Talk, which I appreciate. I really do. I'm flattered by that. It was the butt computer. So what are you saying? So hold on here a second. You can hear something now? I want Zara. I want, maybe we can get this going here after all. What is it, 14 minutes after the hour? Those of you who are on the stream, you're very patient. Oh, this is the 20-minute break. All right, we might have something here now. As soon as this thing in the background plays, those of you who tuning in on the stream, thank you so much. There's a commercial playing at K-Talk. I got to find out if Paul was able to reboot the right computer, or I don't know what's funnier, trying to ride 2 horses or the absolute nonsense I have to put up with in life. From the network, yeah, nothing more I can, oh well, nothing more. Yeah, Paul, I know. I know, Paul, thank you, buddy. All right, now I'm going to try one more time, and no, there's nothing. All right, I'm not going to worry about K-Talk. Boom, you're gone. All right, welcome to the stream, Breaking Health Barriers with me, Dr. Jack Stockwell, and I'm just going to shut off my communication with K-Talk. There, leave the page open. And it looks like we're staying up. I had to make some changes with my webmaster, with StreamYard, that carries the stream, and it looks like maybe that kind of took care of the problem. All right, here it is, 16 minutes after the hour. So you've heard me talk about Dr. Paul Offit many times, who is, I hate using the word doctor, but he did get a medical degree, no matter how much he's bastardized it. For, who am I to say such a thing? I say such a thing is because I have personally debated him, as I've said many times on national radio, and he's the go-to guy when the legacy media needs somebody to fall back on when the overwhelming evidence continues to increase on the danger of vaccines. Not just in the sense of what they're currently trying to do, what Kennedy is trying to do with finally bringing the studies that were buried and covered up, bringing them to the light of day so people can see the devastating effects that these things have on the human immune system. And it is just part of the propaganda that somehow it escapes all rational thought that mankind has existed for, whether you believe in the archaeology records of millions of years on this planet or the scriptural intimation, certainly not definitive, of 6,000 years on this planet. How in the world did we ever live for 100 years without vaccines? How could we possibly have survived? And it wasn't the vaccines that got rid of the childhood deaths. It was cleaning up the water through the Clean Water Acts of Congress during World War I, forcing communities to actually have clean water provided to their citizens. That's when the childhood diseases started disappearing and children actually were able to live to adolescence. But the legacy media, every time there's a problem with this, they turn to Dr. Paul Offit. And so he is making one of the great behemoths, let me put it that way, one of the great behemoth bureaucracies that exists in the government is the bureaucracy that continues to support big pharma. That the idea is that you can live better chemically, not naturally. And I took care of a 16-year-old girl yesterday for the first time because of because of soccer injuries. Well, you see what's on my mind. Because of soccer injuries. And just terrible. The shoulder way up in the air and her spine is twisted and her hips are twisted the opposite way. And she still makes first team appearance because of her talent, even though her spine is all twisted. And despite the fact that her spine was untwisted when she left, she was standing straighter and taller, and just this look of overwhelming surprise on her face that the way she had been living was not natural, and that there was a way that she could live with a balanced structural frame, despite all the other underlying symptoms she had. I'm not going to go into, but was caused by the twisting of the spine. I tell you all that to tell you this: she wants to get into medicine. She had a very close family member die from cancer. And so she wants to take the medical route. At least that's where her idealism exists right now. And in talking to her about these things, it was very important, at least from my point of view, to let her know that somehow mankind slipped through the as of yet, undiscovered vaccine veil up to 100 years ago, and it manages to survive on this planet today. Now, whenever something happens to threaten that icon of healing, they always turn to Paul Offit. And he's presented as an expert, and he owns many vaccine patents, which the articles, the newspaper or the radio, TV, whatever, never mentions that. They never mention the fact that there's a serious conflict of interest here. But he's aligned with what's called Biotechnology Innovation Organization, the BIO. And its founders, you may have heard of them before, Pfizer, Merck, Novavax, and it's in the Make America Healthy Again article, The Plot to Oust RFK Jr. And confirming his alliance with Big Pharma, Offit recently told NBC News that removing Kennedy from leadership is what we have to do. He says that with a straight face, being interviewed by NBC News. We have to get rid of Kennedy. Now, Offit said that Kennedy's plan to overhaul the federal vaccine injury compensation will make it easier to bring bogus lawsuits to civil court claiming vaccine injuries. Now, let's just examine that for a minute. That's one of his big arguments. We've got to get rid of Kennedy, because if Kennedy overhauls the vaccine injury compensation program, which has been around, for several decades now, if you can prove to a vaccine injury court, there's no jury, there's just a judge. And you know how easy it is to pay off judges anymore. We see that every day in America. In fact, it's a side benefit of becoming a judge, is your ability to be bribed and your system covering it up. But that's a story for another show. The vaccine compensation, the injury compensation program, is if you can prove the vaccine's injured your child, you can, to a certain degree, get some compensation for all the money you had to lay out, in lieu of the fact that you can't sue the vaccine company that made the toxic compound that injured your child. Less than 1% of these things ever get through. So 100 people who had a child that got a vaccine, and within a matter of 24 to 48 hours to 7 to 10 days, the child is not the child anymore that they had. It's something different. I shouldn't say it. He or she is something different. And there's no other causative factor. To be able to prove that it was the vaccine that did that, any reasonable jury would obviously agree with it. But this vaccine compensation court won't. And you just have to go. What they do is they wait you out, because they know that you only have so much money and so much time. And eventually you're going to walk away from it. Well, Offit says that Kennedy's plans, if he actually makes vaccine manufacturers liable for their injuries, that the vaccine manufacturers will walk away from making vaccines. And that kind of a fear is based on the idea that, again, as I said at the beginning, we're better off being vaccinated than unvaccinated. Now, Offit has no respect for people who say they're the vaccine injured. And one wonders how Offit can claim that the bogus lawsuits are going to be filed when Kennedy's proposed reforms have not even been announced yet. But it doesn't matter. If Kennedy intends to do something, Paul Offit is against it. Now, he's the director of Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and a former member of the ACIP, the Advisory Commission on Immunization Practices. Remember, Kennedy just fired all 17 members, because all 17 members of the Advisory Commission on Immunization Practices were either heavy investors in these vaccine manufacturing companies, or were on boards of directors or CEOs or whatever else, intimately tied to the mission statement of these vaccine companies. So he couldn't find one in the 17 that could be trusted for vaccine information. So he put in 17 new people. And now, of course, they're under attack by Big Pharma. It's difficult. It's difficult for the average person to imagine this kind of evil, because the average person wouldn't do this. I know you wouldn't. Would you make money off of a program that killed people? Would you be actively involved in some kind of a system that knowingly harmed people just for the money you were gaining from it? I don't think you would. And so Offit, who holds a patent on the Rotatech, the rotavirus vaccine, that vaccine made Merck millions and millions. I suppose it's made him at least $1 million. The New York Times recently gave Offit a platform to criticize Kennedy for replacing the members of the ACIP that netted him an estimated $29 million after using his role on the committee to create the market for the rotavirus vaccine. Do you hear what I just said? He sat on this committee, the advisory committee for vaccines, the ACIP. And in the time that he was serving on that, he netted an estimated $29 million using his role on the committee to create the market for the rotavirus vaccine. And Offit said this: what Kennedy just did, he lost the trust of the medical community, so much so that people are thinking, should we try and create our own ACIP, our own vaccine advisory committee? Because you can't trust this one. Holy smoke. I mean, just right there in your face. You can't trust the new one because the new one is made up of scientists. So there's some cases where you can trust the science, and obviously there's times and cases where you can't. Offit comes right out and says, we're going to create our own committee because you can't trust this one. To me, that's like Al Capone coming out and finally saying, with a new mayor that got elected, who's a really good mayor of Chicago and is going to go after organized crime, and Al Capone coming out and saying, we're going to elect our own mayor because you can't trust this new one. So in a recent NBC News interview, Offit stated that Kennedy has replaced the ACIP members with people who are like him. This is insane. And Offit describes them as science deniers and anti-vaccine advocates, and to some extent, you may want to sit down with this one, conspiracy theorists. So he goes on to say that professional organizations like the Academy of Pediatrics are working with insurance companies so parents can turn to them for vaccine guidance. He's working with insurance companies. The Academy of Pediatrics is working with insurance companies so that parents can turn to the insurance companies for advice. There's no words. So ACIP, the advisory committee for immunization, he has a new ACIP, the Anti-Vaccine Committee on Immunization Practices. The translation is this ACIP may not be the big pharma lapdog that Offit and his cronies have manipulated for their own profitable purposes for 2 generations now, but this is the real Paul Offit. And I saw him, maybe 2 weeks ago on National News in the Morning for just a 30-second clip as the go-to man for, again, I'm trying to find an analogy that will really hit it. Really hit it. I mean, it's like going to Heinrich Himmler. as the go-to man for personal security freedom under the Nazi regime. He's the voice box for the old guard in vaccinology, the vaccinology cult. I don't know what else to call it. And as the inevitable changes come to the massive childhood vaccine schedule, often repeatedly is being called upon by the pharma-funded legacy media to defend Big Pharma's vaccinology hegemony, which profits richly from a childhood vaccine schedule that forces children to receive up to 90 vaccines before age 18. No other country on this planet puts such a burden on children. And many countries, many first world countries, do not even mandate vaccines for children. They leave it up to the parents to decide. Now, again, the one thing you always need to keep in mind when I or anybody else talks about healthcare comparisons between the United States and these other countries, the reason why the average adult and average child in these other countries are healthier by far than we are in this country is because they have national health care. National health care paid for by the federal government. Now, you may live in places like Sweden, where the tax is somewhere around 80%. 80%. Other countries in Europe that have national health care have, maybe it's as low as 50%. I know Spain is kind of low. Well, compared to the others, extremely high otherwise. And that the largest portion of the tax burden upon the citizens of these other countries is to be able to pay for national health care. So obviously the governments in these other countries sponsor the programs that lead to better health care outcomes because they're paying the bill. Just as you putting your home budget together. You may have to change where you're shopping for food. You may have to change where you're shopping for clothes. You may change where you buy gasoline for your car because of what the budget will allow. On the other hand, in these other countries, they promote programs that lead to the better health of their citizens, which is why food over there, and over there I mean Europe for the most part, their food is healthier than our food. And I've often used the example of French fries. French fries in the UK have 3 ingredients: potato, the beef tallow they're fried in, and salt. Here, there's 17 ingredients in McDonald's French fries. And these ingredients didn't come from Mother Nature. Well, some of them did, but most of them didn't. They come from a laboratory. And your liver doesn't have the enzymes to handle these things. So you end up with liver toxicities, which can manifest as problems throughout the entire body. So Kennedy's trying to fight that as well, but the big fight right now is Paul Offit. So Offit regularly defends this tyranny that regularly feature him in these very softball interviews where he's never asked a single question about his past profits he's made off the vaccine mandates. However, in a recent interview, and I think I talked about this the other day with Tucker Carlson, Kennedy said this. One of the people on that board, ACIP, was a guy called Paul Offit. He doesn't even say doctor, Paul Offit, who is one of the big voices for vaccines that CNN goes to him all the time when it wants to know about vaccines. He voted to add the rotavirus vaccine to the schedule when he had a rotavirus vaccine in development because it's now on the schedule. And his developing vaccine is virtually guaranteed to get on that schedule. And within a year, the vaccine had to be withdrawn because it was causing this really disastrous disease in children that's called, and it's often lethal, intussusception. It's where you get a blockage in the bowel of a child. You can't live with your bowel blocked. Agonizingly painful when your intestines get all tied up together, and it kills the child that has it. And that vaccine was pulled the following year, and then his vaccine then replaced him, and he was still on the committee. So Tucker Carlson responded, Offit's behavior led to his rotavirus vaccine being added to the mandatory vaccine schedule. Meanwhile, Kennedy said Offit, along with his business partner Stanley Plotkin and others, Plot, you gotta love that, they sold that vaccine to Merck for $186 million. Now, not surprisingly, after the Office of the Inspector General investigated this blatant conflict of interest, they found nothing. Nothing here. Keep going. Don't worry. Just keep moving along. There's nothing here. It's this system that Kennedy wants to go after, and now has changed. The New York Times allowed Offit to complain about Kennedy's ACIP makeover, but never mentioned Offit's ACIP antics himself. So as defender of this cult, Offit denies that anyone is ever injured by them. I'm going to say that again because it's so shocking it may not have registered. Offit denies that anyone has ever been injured by a vaccine. Now, when the go-to guy by CNN says that, and other networks have used him, and he's considered God Almighty when it comes to this cult, they're going to believe him. So when hysterical parents who have a child who dies 48 hours after a vaccine, a perfectly healthy child, and the medical people say, well, I don't know. Some children die. Or a parent who is consumed with almost soul-destroying guilt because they knew better not to vaccinate that child, but they did it anyway out of pressure, and now the child is autistic. It must be something else. It must be a virus, because Offit says vaccines do not injure anybody. He believes that those who question the safety of vaccines are dangerous lunatics, the anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. I don't know how this man sleeps at night. I don't know if he does sleep at night. Maybe he needs 2 or 3 Ambien to get through the night after lying like this and leading to a situation that has not just damaged millions of children, but killed them. And despite clear evidence supporting the derecommendation of the mRNA COVID vaccines for children and young adults, and I got more to say on this later in the program, Offit, as you might expect, is very critical of this view. Dr. Vinay Prasad lays out the case that Biden administration public health officials suppressed the information about myocarditis caused by the COVID vaccines. I think some of the best radio shows I've ever given on that subject have all been taken down by YouTube because I cited the science behind it. Prasad replaced Peter Marks as the director of the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. And Offit clearly preferred Marx's strategy of ignoring and downplaying the risk of myocarditis in young people. Offit's criticism is that it's now a dangerous time to be a child in the U.S. of A. Because RFK Jr. and Vijay Prasad and probably him, he said, are going to make the vaccines more feared. It's a dangerous time in America to be a child, says Offit. He prefers that the risk associated with vaccines be withheld from the public. He says they shouldn't see this because it would scare them into not getting the vaccine. Apparently, he's fine with ignoring the suspicions that many Americans have that COVID-19 has caused deaths. He is the perfect public health establishment expert for the legacy media because he, like so many other of the propped up media talking heads, wants Americans to flat out deny what is standing right in front of their eyes. Deny, deny, deny. Now, even though the data supports their observations, as Dr. John Campbell explains, ignore what you're seeing, shut up, and take your vaccines like Offit says. Oh, you're not a doctor. Like doctors know everything. Some of the things my patients tell me that their medical doctor told them, I'm sure to some degree is exaggerated here and there, and it may not be the straight skinny all the way through. But some of the stuff I hear is just, where did they go to school? Where were they the day that they taught healthcare? So using Offit's standard of calling anyone who questions vaccine safety as anti-vax, you would be very comfortable in saying that Offit is an anti-environmentalist. He wrote an article claiming that DDT is a safe pesticide and that Rachel Carlson, because of her book Silent Spring, killed millions of people that would be alive today if they had continued to spray DDT. And Offit's bizarre theory is that DDT killed the mosquitoes that spread malaria. Now, if only we had continued to blast DDT all over the planet, we could have ended malaria outbreaks. DDT is good, environmentalists are bad, according to Offit. The New York Times recently noted that Offit also believes that mercury, described thoroughly in scientific literature as a neurotoxin, he says they should not be removed from vaccines. He said that he told NBC that removing mercury from the vaccine was an anti-science decision. I mean, for Paul Offit, DDT and mercury are good for people. And if it's poisonous to the human system, Offit promotes it, especially if he can make money off of it. So he has always refused. This is Dr. Vaccine. This is the man at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, considered by most people in favor of the current vaccine schedule as being Dr. Vaccine himself. If Offit says it, it's probably true. Do you know to this day he refuses to publicly debate Kennedy? In fact, he doesn't engage in any discussion about vaccines that does not occur within the safe confines of legacy media. In other words, as some people have put it, Offit's a real peach. All right, what do we got here, time-wise? 7:45. All right, let me go. I went on with that longer than I planned, but I couldn't help it. It's just so in your face. And you know, and it's this, it isn't just in the vaccine world. It's in the energy world. It's in the food world. It's in the farming world. It's in the legal world. It's in the education world. All of this obvious criminality, where for $1 you can buy somebody else's soul. So it's not just in the, this Wednesday is for a health show, but it's not just in the realm of health that I'm talking about. It's anywhere where mankind shows up. Now, let me give you another example, and this is from Mercola. PPI, proton pump inhibitor drugs, have been linked to a 16% higher risk of heart attacks and doubles the risk of dying from cardiovascular events, even in people with no history whatsoever of heart disease. Now, PPI, proton pump inhibitor, you know, the heartburn drugs, GERD, heartburn, acid reflux, whatever you want to call it. The reason that you need to take salt, plenty of salt in your diet, is so that when that salt hits the stomach juices, it breaks down into sodium and chloride ions. Salt water. But when the sodium chloride bond is broken, when sodium and chloride come together in equal amounts, they form what we know as table salt. Sodium, if you took pure sodium and threw it into water, it'll explode. I've done it. I took about a tablespoon size of sodium metal and threw it into a pond, and bam, huge explosion because of the reaction. The oxidation it happened so fast, it just blam. If you, the other half of the table salt, chloride, comes from, of course, chlorine gas. You take a sniff or two of chlorine gas, you're going to know it. It'll probably knock you out and permanently scar the lungs. Which is why chlorine levels in the drinking water, the water I'm drinking here is Sun Valley spring water. Been drinking spring water for I don't know how long now, years and years and years. I do not drink tap water. Anyway, that chloride from sodium chloride coming from chlorine gas, once it hits the stomach juices, it breaks down into chloride ions. And what a proton pump does, and there are millions of them, if not billions of them, that line the walls of the stomach. And they're sitting there going, pumping out a hydrogen ion. And the hydrogen ion grabs a hold of that chloride ion and forms hydrochloric acid. And that's how acid is formed in the stomach. You don't have acid coming out of the stomach wall when you eat something. The stomach makes hydrochloric, a fresh batch all the time. Why does the hydrochloric acid not dissolve the stomach? That was the first question I had when I finally found out where hydrochloric acid came from. Because there's a mucus lining. A mucus lining of the walls of the stomach that prevents the walls of the stomach from being dissolved by the hydrochloric acid. And just got a text here from Paul, or it's coming in. Yeah, Paul, I agree. Anyway, so this proton pump is pumping out these protons, these hydrogen ions, grabbing a hold of a chloride ion, forms hydrochloric acid. So the way a proton pump inhibitor works is it stops the proton pump from pumping out the protons. It stops the stomach from making hydrochloric acid. You stop making hydrochloric acid, you stop digesting food. That's what the stomach is for, is with a blast of hydrochloric acid to start breaking down proteins into peptides and amino acids. It doesn't do a whole lot for vegetables. Fruit doesn't even need digestion. You know, you ate half a cantaloupe. You chew it up really good, swallow it. It's going straight into the intestine. It's going to go straight through the stomach. Bye-bye. because it doesn't need to be digested. It just needs to be absorbed, especially ripe melon. That's also true of watermelon, things like that. Very ripe peaches and whatever. They just go right into the gut. But proteins and fats need to start some breakdown. Now, fats don't get broken down too much in the stomach. You're going to need the bile that comes in the duodenum to do that. But the proteins start their breakdown. The proteins that come from meat. And why do I point to meat? Because there's another enzyme that comes out of the stomach wall called pepsin. And pepsin is released from the stomach wall when the pH, the acid content of the stomach, gets down to pH of 2 or lower. Now, you know the pH scale goes from 0 to 14, with 7 being neutral. Your blood is about 7.2 to 7.4, just slightly alkaline, for a good reason, but I don't know if I have time to get into that today. We don't want acidic blood. Well, simply because it breaks down the red blood cells. So when the pH of the stomach gets to 2, the stomach wall will release pepsin. And pepsin only has one function: to digest collagen. Collagen is only found in one place: animal meat. So whoever designed these bodies we have to eat meat. How does the stomach acid level get down to a 2 to release the pepsin that digests the collagen? You have to have strong stomach acids. Now you can see where I'm going with this. When you take a proton pump inhibitor, you stop the production of acid, which will stop the production of pepsin, which will stop the digestion of meat. So where does this undigested meat go? Yeah, it goes into the gut. Now, how much digestion will take place thereafter? Oh, a little bit, but not much. Do your bowel movements smell like the last gas attack from World War I? Same thing with your dog if it farts in the living room when the family's gathered around watching TV. That's undigested protein. If you pass gas and it makes some loud noise and it has no smell, you've digested the protein, and that's just carbon dioxide gas coming out because of the carbohydrates that you ate. But if you have some rather stinky farts and terribly smelling bowel movements, that half of the house gets condemned for a couple of hours, you're not digesting your proteins, and they're putrefying in the gut. And this is going to cause a lot of other problems, but the major problem is you're going to become protein deficient. You're going to be starving for proteins. What happens if you don't get enough proteins? Your kidneys are damaged. Your bones get weak. You can't produce the amino acids that your body needs for all of the enzymes that the body requires for activity. Your immune system suffers. And if you don't have a rich acidic stomach, parasites, bacteria, whatever else is in the food that you're eating, and I don't care what you're eating, almost every last thing you eat has bacteria and some kind of parasites in it because they're everywhere. You can't get away from them. One of the reasons for the stomach acid is a barrier to these things ever getting into the body past the stomach. Now, what can I say? You can recover full stomach acid production and digestive function even after years of PPIs. It may take a few months to a year or so, but you can recover and once again enjoy good stomach acid with targeted nutritional support. We use Zypan. I think between Zypan and, well, there's about a dozen products that we sell online and over the counter at K-Talk. I mean, at my office. And Paul, I don't know if you've turned on the stream or not. I definitely appreciate what you've done. Paul has done everything he can with the station from a mobile point of view to bring this program up on K-Talk. And whenever this has happened is that whoever did the last live show at K-Talk probably muted the mic, pushed the mute button. And though my mic is my telephone connection, it goes through the mic connection at the radio station. And so everything on my computer here, everything at the radio station is working fine. I should be broadcasting, but he must have hit the mute button. That's the only other reason for this to happen. So Paul, thank you for everything you've done. All right, so if you're using PPIs, you can taper off slowly. And we just put people on Zypan. Now, before I got on the program this morning, I had a fried egg sandwich on organic wheat sourdough bread and not just grass pastured, but grass raised, grass run around chicken eggs that were not fed GMO corn or soy, just straight bugs, and some chicken feed that's devoid of these other things. And some grass pastured butter. And as soon as I finished that sandwich, I didn't bat an eye. I took 4 Zypan tablets. Zypan is hydrochloric acid in a pill, plus a bunch of other things. There's animal extracts of the digestive system in these pills that are designed to retrain your digestive system. And by so doing, you can get back to the point where you can have normal stomach acid. The only time I don't take Zypan is if I had fruit. Now, when I got to my clinic yesterday, there was an organic apple sitting there in the fridge, and I grabbed it and I cut it up, and I sprinkled sea salt over the apple. I just love salt on apples, and I love salt on watermelon. In fact, I love salt on about everything. I don't put salt on ice cream because there's enough salt in ice cream anyway. And I can't remember the last time I had ice cream. One of my favorite things to eat, by the way. But I have to stay away from it because I can't just have 1 or 2 bites. It's just like a Lay's potato chip. I can't just have 1 or 2, so I got to stay away from them. But you can retrain your stomach to develop good, powerful, protein digesting acid. And so this article from Mercola is where I'm getting this, and then my experience with it, is research has come out showing that the use of these drugs over a long period of time leads to cardiovascular disease. It leads to kidney disease. It leads to liver disease. Why? Where is disease coming from? How can using an acid blocker lead to disease? Now, I want you to think about this for a moment because you should know the answer if you've been listening to my show long enough. What is the number 1 cause of disease that I have espoused for 30 years at K-Talk? Malnutrition. When your body doesn't get the food nutrient that it needs, it begins to suffer from malnutrition. And one of the first systems in the body to suffer from malnutrition is your immune system. Now, when the heart isn't getting the essential amino acids and fats that it needs to operate because you've got a terrible impediment in your digestive system that's stopping heartburn, but it's stopping feeding your heart. So your heart begins to suffer from malnutrition. It starts to starve to death. And the first organ in the body to suffer from malnutrition is the heart. The quickest organ to respond to improve nutrition is the heart, as we demonstrate regularly with the heart sound recorder test that we do in the office. We can show positive changes in a matter of minutes in heart function by chewing up just a few supplements and waiting a few minutes for it to get into the system. More than 60 million Americans deal with heartburn every month. And for millions of them, relief comes in the form of these over-the-counter prescription acid blockers, proton pump inhibitors, PPIs. Promising, of course, long-lasting relief. I have patients that have been on PPIs for 20 years. And I say, you don't get heartburn anymore? Oh, no, not as long as I take it. Every day they take their PPI. Now, you know they're over-the-counter. The patents run out on a lot of them. And the purple pill, Nexium, these kinds of things, you can get them without a prescription now. I wonder how fast they sell. But you'll know that the real reason of reflux for most people is low stomach acid. Not too much acid, it's too little acid. Why is the stomach making too little? Oh, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you make too little acid, food backs up in the stomach. The pyloric valve that's at the very bottom of the stomach that opens the stomach contents into the small intestine, into the duodenum, will open up under certain signals. And one of those signals is sufficient acidification of the food that's in the stomach. Your stomach, when you have food in there, it's churning. You can't feel it because nature didn't give you the ability to feel a churning stomach. It gives you the ability to feel a fermented, bloated, pressurized stomach as the gastric expansion begins. But as far as the churning, the slow churning of food mixing with the acids, you don't feel that. And when the food becomes essentially acidified, the pyloric valve will open up. The acid-based food will leave the stomach, hit the duodenum, where it's hit with a barrage of bicarbonate that your stomach makes to neutralize the acid. Then it gets hit with some alkaline-based, very powerful protein digesting enzymes, trypsin, chymotrypsin, and some other things that are present, to continue the breakdown of what's left of the protein structures after the stomach acid has done its job. Now, when you're not making enough acid, even before you start using PPIs, this stuff hangs around in the stomach and you get bloated. And it doesn't seem to matter what you eat. Now, why aren't you making enough acid? Because you're eating foods for a while now that your stomach doesn't recognize. And it doesn't make acid. What does it not recognize? If Mother Nature didn't make it, it has a hard time recognizing it as something that needs to be digested. Oh, no, Dr. Jack, anything that gets into the stomach is going to be digested. No, that's where indigestion comes from. You're eating foods that are not triggering the stomach to release enough acid. It releases some because it adds to the fermentation. And the longer this stuff sits in your stomach, and people who have this problem know what I'm talking about. You can just feel this empty weight or this heavy weight in the stomach. It just sits there and it ferments. And as it ferments, it produces gas, which stretches the stomach wall. And that's where you get the bloating feeling. but it just sits there. It's not moving through because it's not being digested. And after a while, the stomach just stops making acid because you're eating stuff that doesn't trigger the formation of acid. Amazing how Mother Nature works. So as these gases build up in the stomach from fermentation, they start blowing up through the cardiac valve into the esophagus, up your throat. And that's where the heartburn comes from. All of which can easily be taken care of with just using some Zypan, for Pete's sake. If you go to forbiddendoctor.com and under standard process, search Zypan, Z-Y-P-A-N. I think anybody over the age of 30, and probably some people younger than that, need it. If I have a steak, and I haven't had one probably in a couple of weeks, but if I had a steak, I'd probably take anywhere from 6 to 8. And I'll tell you, as soon as I do that, probably within 10, 15 minutes, I can't even tell there's something in my stomach. There's no bloating, there's no extra weight, and there's extra acid in there to break down that protein. Now, why would I take that many? Because I'm 75. Once you hit 35, half my age ago, you make about half of the digestive enzymes you made when you were a teenager. And see, it's all built around the reproduction of the species. Because you can create a bell curve from when you're capable of reproducing another human being and when that rate of conception starts to drop off for whatever reason. We are timed in our bodies to reach a certain level of maximum nutrition at the same time we reach the maximum sex drive, to make sure the sperm cell is healthy and the egg is healthy and the uterine wall is healthy in order to produce a healthy offspring. And then once you reach a certain age, which is around the mid-30s to early 40s, that curve starts coming down rapidly. And this is sad and heartbreaking as this may sound. Nature begins to deselect you for presence on this planet to make room for those who will continue the species. And it's that simple. Now, at 75, the last thing I want to do is reproduce. Now, I can think of a couple of things worse than that. This is why early 40s to mid 40s, a woman's ability to produce estrogen greatly drops off. So she stops ovulating. If she doesn't ovulate, if she doesn't produce an egg, she can't conceive, she can't produce a baby. Why would nature pick that age? We didn't pick that age, nature did, because the malnutritional status of the human body begins to wane after the powerful digestive processes of the body begin to wane, that's producing the natural nutritive strength inside a woman's body to produce a healthy offspring. And it begins with digestion. All life begins with digestion. All life ends with digestive problems that leads to malnutrition, that leads to organ dysfunction, that leads to death. I don't know how it could be any simpler than that. Now, with that whole thing I just got through explaining, why in the world would you take a proton pump inhibitor to stop the digestive process as early as in your 20s? Well, if I don't, the acid goes up my stomach, up my throat, it's eroding my teeth, it's giving me these horrible pains. Well, fix the problem as to why that's happening. Because the cure is worse than the disease. Here with heartburn, you got a burning esophagus, burning throat. But the use of PPIs, your heart's going to quit, your liver's going to quit, your kidneys are going to quit. Anything that's protein-based let's see, is there something in the stomach that's not, or the body that's not based on protein? Might be a couple of things. I can't think of them right away. And if you don't have healthy proteins, you don't have a healthy body. If you don't have healthy digestion, you don't have healthy proteins breaking into healthy amino acids. I hope I'm not preaching. But the concern just doesn't end up in the gut, and that's where the cardiovascular stuff comes from that Mercola is warning about. And you take this every morning. You take your PPI every morning, thinking it's harmless. It's going to save you from heartburn, and it will. It'll save you from heartburn. But this can be fixed without taking omeprazole or esomeprazole, Nexium or Prilosec, both of which are over the counter. So this study with Mercola goes into greater length. You can get it at mercola.com, and you can read all of the studies. And PPIs are linked to a 16% higher heart attack risk. PPI users face double the risk of dying from any kind of heart problem. H2 blockers did not show the same cardiovascular risk. H2 blockers like Pepcid, famotidine, they just prevent it doesn't stop the proton pump from producing protons. It just stops the body from using the H2 ion molecule, H2 ion, to form with chloride to form hydrochloric acid. Doesn't seem to have as bad an effect, but still you're not digesting proteins. All right, I think I've spent enough time on that. Now, here it is 12 minutes after the hour. The announcement I want to make is that starting next Monday and Tuesday, I'm only going to do the geopolitical show for 1 hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. From 7 to 8, it's my intention to do at least a couple of 15 to 20 minute pre-recorded. Well, no, they'll be live. Stream broadcasts. Instead of a 2-hour program, there'll be a couple of them there. And then the third one will be an hour long from 8 to 9 a.m. And I'm starting to put a list together of people that I want to interview because I can't do that with K-Talk. I can't do an interview on the stream at the same time I'm broadcasting K-Talk. The feedback is coming. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's horrible. So I will be able to start doing interviews. And I haven't done interviews since probably since 2000, for 10 years. And there's a lot of people out there that know an awful lot more than I do that I would like to learn from and to bring them on the show to educate all of us. Now, I talked a while ago, back in June, the law that was signed by Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, Senate Bill 25, that requires processed foods with banned ingredients to display a warning label on the package, not fit for human consumption or not recommended for human consumption, something like that. I think it was supposed to be not fit, but the food people making the non-fit foods finally got some compromise here to say not recommended for human consumption. And the law targets 44 harmful ingredients, most of which are already banned overseas, including artificial dyes, seed oils, so that you get your bag of Lay's potato chips that's been fried in soybean oil. It's going to have a label on it that says not recommended for human consumption. Can you imagine that? If you've got a party coming up and you got to stop by the store to get some stuff for the party, aren't potato chips, corn chips, one of the first things you pick? I think I do. I think that's one of the first things I pick. Imagine seeing not recommended for human consumption on the front of a bag of potato chips, unless it's fried in something else than a seed oil. Now, occasionally, I'll get together with some of the people here where I live, and I'll get some chips fried in avocado oil. Was there something else? Tallow, was there? Were there some chips? Something exotic. If you go to Natural Foods or Sprouts or Whole Foods, they have some more exotic oils and fats that potato chips are fried in that are a lot healthier. Can you have a healthy potato chip? I think so. You can overdo it. What about the salt? Again, you have to read the label. What other things are in there besides potato, salt, and fat that is fried in? That's one of the, and I looked at what, I've been to Europe, I don't know, half a dozen times. And if we're at an Airbnb or we're going to be in a hotel for a few days, I'll go to the local food store and get some cheese and a few other things. And I look at and I will see common foods sold here. Not very many. Most of the foods sold there are made there. But I'll read the label. And I'll read the label of the foods that are manufactured and sold inside the European Union. And here, when you read a list of ingredients that's this long, over there it's like this. Because again, the government that has to pay for bad health brought on by bad food decisions bans these things from the food supply of their citizens. So companies like PepsiCo, General Mills, Walmart have lobbied very hard to weaken Senate Bill 25 in Texas. They think it's going to lead to confusion of the consumer for consumers. I think the consumers are smarter than that. But industry pressure already forced the lawmakers to take aspartame out of the list and high fructose corn syrup, both having known health risks. Both of them have been removed from the list of removal foods. So they'll still be there. And then there's loopholes in the bill that allow packaging to remain on shelves for years, giving food companies time to keep selling their toxic foods without warning labels. So Skittles, Doritos, Fruit Loops, other popular snacks that are in our grocery stores may carry additional labels in the future not fit for human consumption. Sounds a little satirical, but it's not. It's what a landmark Texas bill is soon going to require. Now, why are they bothering with this? Because processed foods are loaded. And in many cases, some of these things don't even have to be listed on the label, but they're loaded with artificial additives, synthetic dyes, partially hydrogenated oils, seed oils that have been consistently linked to obesity and chronic diseases. And while many of these are, as I said, banned in other countries, they're rampant here. So I'm all for this. Senate Bill 25 targets 44 ingredients. Once the bill takes effect, food products will be required to carry the label by 2027, which gives these food companies a chance to clear out their crappy stock before it gets too late, or before it gets wasted. Once the bill takes effect, food products will be required to carry the label warning this product contains an ingredient that is not recommended for human consumption by the appropriate authorities in Australia, Canada, the European Union, or the United Kingdom. And there's some healthy penalties for it. All right, now, no surprise, Big Food strongly opposes this. And as expected, the food and beverage manufacturers scrambled, did everything they could to halt us, to stop this. They're going to be confused. The buyers won't know what to buy. No, I think they're smarter than that. Now, the high fructose corn syrup, and I'm going to finish with this pretty quick, and I'll finish the stream with this. High fructose corn syrup and aspartame both have been flagged for many years because they lead to metabolic dysfunction, neurotoxicity. They were quietly removed from the list of banned ingredients, of the 44 banned ingredients. These sweeteners are widely used in breakfast cereals, diet sodas, and their removal from the bill shows just how powerful the food industry is in controlling public health policy. Now, what do you suppose the lobbyists for big food had to say to the members of the Texas Senate? Do you like your job? Do you want to get reelected? Do you want to lose your primary? Then stop this nonsense and stop restricting these foods. Any member of the Texas Senate with any sense of ethics would say, but these foods are killing people. Who cares if they're killing people? That's not the issue here. The issue here is freedom, First Amendment freedoms. And these companies benefit in the billions from these ultra-processed, artificially enhanced products. And warning labels will simply threaten their business model. And it's not about consumers being confused. It's about protecting the consumer. Now, the law does have some loopholes that may be advantageous for big food, because while the bill officially takes place September of this year, the new labeling laws only apply to food packaged after January 1st, 2027, which means the companies can leave old packaging on the shelves for up to a decade without any new warning labels. So anyway, you can get this yourself at Mercola. A great article, as Mercola usually produces great articles. I wanted to talk about the benefits of breastfeeding, but I think I'm going to save that for the next program because I'm not simulcasting a K-Talk. It's the easiest, I'm just going to go ahead and bring the stream to an end. And I wanted to talk about breastfeeding. I want to also talk about, the medical cartel is suing Bobby Jr. for pulling the COVID shot recommendation for kids and women. This pregnant women. This is how insidious the lobbying power in America is. But it's one of the risks of living in a free society. See, if we were living in the Soviet Union, where the government had the absolute last say on what was on a radio broadcast or a TV show or movies, and they had that under Stalin. They had their movies. They had their radio programs, but they were all controlled by a board of propaganda, just as Goebbels did in Nazi Germany. But we kind of have that today in the sense that we've gone the opposite direction in what people can get away with saying publicly that's harmful to the public simply because they pay off the people who would make laws against that. So I would definitely want to live under our government than Stalin's government. There's no issue about that. But there are risks that come with living in a free society. And the risk is being taken advantage of by corporate power and corporate money. So this is, again, what I usually try to finish my shows with is to keep your wits about you. Study, analyze, journal, whatever you got to do to make this information your own. Don't believe these things I'm telling you because I'm telling you. When I hear people say Stockwell said this or Stockwell said that, I'm flattered by that, but I want your analysis and your research to go a little bit deeper than that. I want you to find this stuff out for yourself because then you will own it. Then you won't be saying things like, well, Stockwell said this. You'll be saying, hey, this is what this particular research article had to say about aspartame. In fact, I have a copy of it right here. Would you like to see it? Now, that's an informed citizen. And I will end up here with one of my favorite sayings from Mark Twain. If you don't pay attention to the morning news, you're going to be misinformed. No. Uninformed. If you don't listen to the morning news, you're going to be uninformed. If you listen to the evening news, you're going to be misinformed. So where's that leave you? Well, you need to study this stuff for yourself. And there's just so many sources out there on the internet of really beautiful, reliable information. Get it from as many sources as you can so that you become a real threat to the status quo. And you own this stuff for yourself. All right. I've got a schedule full of patients today. I saw 2 new people yesterday, this 16-year-old girl that's a soccer player that walked out completely different than when she walked in. Her hips untwisted, her shoulders leveled, her spine was straight. She could feel that she was taller. She didn't want to be there. Her mother got her in there because I had taken care of her mother a week before. When her mother was impressed enough with what happened to her, she wanted her daughter in there. And then I took care of the daughter's grandmother. So the daughter was there and the grandmother was there at the same time. Grandmother's in her mid-60s. Just very stiff neck and stiff shoulders. And she kept remarking right up until the time she left, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. What? I can move my head. Yeah. Well, this is just the beginning, young lady. I can say that because she's younger than me. Wait till I've worked on you 2 or 3 times and see how you feel then. All right, that's going to do it for Breaking Health Barriers. I'm Dr. Jack Stockwell, and I appreciate your being a part of the stream. Please like and refer. Most of the people who hear this will hear this not live. They hear it later on, but they go into it. But the numbers keep building because of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to end the stream, and I will see you next Monday at 8 a.m. for the political